Professor Amina Mama, feminist intellectual, welcome to the JSO interview.
Thank you very much, John.
Professor, you are no stranger to Nairobi, you are no stranger to Kenya, but this time round you came to give the keynote address, the public lecture, at a gathering organized by the African Leadership Center at the University of Nairobi. And the topic of your discourse was global militarism and the resilience of women in Africa. But you had no reservations about being called a feminist. And therefore, I'm going to start off by reading to you from a local magazine, an advertisement for a cooking oil. And the copy, as it's so called, has this on it. There are only 3 things women need in life: food, water, and compliments. And I guess the compliments go with making a wonderful meal with the cooking oil.
It's horribly familiar. I was raised like every other woman probably on the planet, and certainly on the African continent.
Perhaps you tell our viewers where you were raised, because they,
okay.
yeah, just
I grew up in northern Nigeria, so I would say I've had an upbringing very similar to many women across Africa, in which you were indeed schooled to cook, look good, and be a conventional woman. That advert speaks to the legacy of women being positioned as domestic workers within the home and serving husbands in return for compliments. There's nothing wrong with doing those things, but many of us have been to school and have additional aspirations, and of course there are many women who are not that interested in confining themselves to the home. We have a great deal more to contribute to society. And it is that little fact that leads many people to describe women who want to move beyond the kitchen and the bedroom as feminists. So a long time ago, probably by the age of 10, when people were calling me a feminist because I was saying I wouldn't go for an arranged marriage, as many of my friends around me were expected to do, I've been called a feminist since then.
And being a feminist has led you into the halls of academia and professorship. It's become a full-time job being a feminist. Doing what? What is the agenda?
Well, what I do in the halls of the academia is teach, like all other professors. I teach, I do research. So that's not about my identity as a feminist. But naturally, one's identity informs how one does one's scholarship. So most of my scholarship falls under the broad rubric of what is better known as gender studies, gender and women's studies. And for those who are timid about being called feminists, I can recommend referring to yourself as someone who cares about gender, or about gender justice, or about equality between women, men, and indeed among people.
Right, let me take you, we're in Kenya, so I'm going to go anecdotal and tell you about current news in our society. As a presenter, I have given out news about women who either are paying money to have their husbands killed, hitmen, or just coming back sort of in a drunken stupor and giving them a big whack with the machete, which creates a great deal of unhappiness in our world. But when we've gone out to ask for solutions as to this social problem, the idea is that if they lived in this predominantly Christian society, a good Christian wives as ordained by the Bible, then all will be well. And I'm saying that in a society where faith, which guides the lives of many people, the faith, my God is telling me to behave in such fashion, I think that your agenda is going to meet with a lot of, to say the least, ill will.
Well, faith, and whether we're speaking of Christianity or indeed Islam, what we need to bear in mind is that very often religion is rendered to us via male perspectives. And there are a great many deeply religious women who read and study the texts and would make a counter-argument regarding the subordination of women. So there's a lot of debate among people from the churches and people in the mosques exactly about these issues. What is prescribed for women, and indeed what is prescribed for men? And I would say it is an ongoing debate. It isn't a debate,
with respect.
It's a debate.
It isn't a respect because you will be submissive to your husbands. It doesn't seem to be that there's a lot to discuss there. It's a command.
Command from who?
From God.
Directly.
Through the scriptures.
Through the scriptures, which were written by
men.
Yes, that's my point.
Right.
So religion can be religion for women and men who are religious. I'm saying that there is an ongoing discussion within the church, within the mosque, around exactly what is prescribed for women. Look at the debate about the ordainment of women. Most women are deeply religious, but their participation in the institutions of the church and the mosque is not equal. And this is a question of tradition and history.
Right. Another Kenyan thing that's on the ground, and you're the outsider, so hopefully you can make your comments and catch them next plane.
Well, let me first mention, I am deeply concerned to hear that so many women are apparently killing their husbands.
Not so many.
Why are they doing is the obvious question. I have to ask you, why are women killing their husbands? Because, and the reason I'm asking is because just about 3 days ago there was the first ever global report on domestic violence launched, and it uncovered that more than 1/3 of the world's women, and I'm assuming Kenya is not different, are assaulted by their domestic partners.
Right.
So what we all know is that the vast majority of victims of violence in the home are the women who are beaten and killed by their husbands. Women are more likely to be murdered by their husband than by any other person. So this is a fact.
Right.
So it's interesting to me, and I need to ask you why. What has made Kenyan women turn to killing their husbands? It sounds like a very desperate act. Well, why would you kill your husband?
I wouldn't go so far as to provide the answer myself, but I mean, the debate is out there, and I'm still drawing in these are debates, these are current debates. Yet another current debate, this idea of gender changing, and there is a young Kenyan who has decided to change sex and become a woman. Again, much to the ridicule, I think, generally, of Kenyan society. Coming from the issue of gender studies, would you comment?
The changing of genders is a complicated and interesting business, but I would welcome the young man and say you've made the right decision to become a woman if you were unsure of what your gender was. Now, presumably, if he was happy as a man, he would not have the uncertainty that has led him to choose this particular path. But as a woman and as a feminist, I would welcome him for choosing to identify that way.
But that does
it's an act of enormous courage.
But it is an act of enormous courage. But before that, all along, we're trying to suggest that there are certain traits which are quintessentially feminine. And if you have those traits, I mean, if I were to show my feminine side, could I extrapolate to a point where I then decided that I wanted to show more of it and become a woman myself? Or, do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do, and I would hope that you wouldn't have to, because if our societies are at all free, people should be free to express themselves, including their tendencies to masculinity or femininity, which we all contain a degree of both. People would be free to express those and not have to go through a radical physical change, including surgery, chemotherapy, and it's a very arduous route that the young man has chosen. And I think that the fact that he's willing to go through all that pain tells you something about how profoundly he's felt wrongly identified in the body that he inhabits. So I would say this is a problem. And it's a pity that anyone should feel so uncomfortable in the body that God gave them, that they should feel compelled to change.
Right.
And it tells you that society is restricting people.